Hey everybody, welcome to the bathroom on my Forest River fifth wheel, aka the money pit. Fifth wheel trailers, unless you have oodles of money and can afford to buy one of those really big premium brands, which are crazy expensive, fifth wheel trailers are in general very cheaply built and yet still somehow not cheap to buy. Again, everything's relative, right? Well, anyways, enough rambling on. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to change out the faucet that came with the Forest River trailer and put something in there that's going to be better quality and last longer than this did. This is a 2011 trailer. It is currently 2019, so we broke this last year. Well, not really we. One of the kids did. But in his defense, it wouldn't have taken much to break it. I think there was already evidence. When I examined this and looked at the crack, I could see that part of the crack was fresh when the handle broke off, and part of the crack was discolored, indicating to me that the crack had started to form, and then he just happened to be the unlucky soul who was the last person whose hand was on it when it broke. So anyways, this looks pretty, doesn't it? This looks almost like a brushed copper lacquered finish or something like that. But the dirty little secret about this thing is, it's actually I started to loosen it up, so that's why it looks like that. But the dirty little secret about this faucet is the whole thing is plastic. I don't mean just like the knobs. I mean the body, everything is plastic. Now, some might want to make the argument that, oh, that's by design. That's to keep weight down, because every place that they can save on weight is going to save you on fuel when you're pulling your trailer. Well, the problem is, with something like this, I'd rather have those few more ounces that are going to be from a quality metal faucet. And I use quality in the loosest sense of the term, because the faucet we bought, got it off of Amazon, pretty cheap. I think it was like $40 shipped with Prime, but it's a brass construction if I'm not mistaken. Let me get this out and show you what we're looking at here. So this is all plastic. Okay, plastic knobs. See the plastic broken off in there? All plastic plumbing. And even the spout is all plastic. It's a real cheap piece of junk. Now, the other thing about this is, notice the connections. This uses these 1/2 inch threaded stems for the plumbing connections. This is more typical of what you would find in a laundry tub or laundry sink utility type faucet. Oh, so in case you're wondering how to take this out, all you have to do is reach up. The PEX tubing has connectors on it that thread right onto this. So you just unscrew, and this, you don't even need tools. It's hand tight. If you got strong fingers, you can get in there and just loosen these connections off. So we can see this PEX tubing coming up here. And what's up underneath there. All right, so see what they did here? They got these little connections that thread onto those tubes on the bottom of the faucet, and then they're crimped onto the end of this 1/2 inch PEX tube, and then there's a 1/2 inch. Then there's a PEX elbow crimped on there, because they got the pipes coming up over here, and then they kind of have to offset to go over there. Then they've got also, notice there's these two other red lines coming up. These are not for the faucet at all. These are for what looks to be maybe a vacuum breaker vent. I think they call these ready vents or insta vents. It's part of the venting system, or anti-siphon. I think this is a vacuum breaker. I honestly don't remember what the terminology is there. Who cares? That's not what we're here to talk about. You reach up underneath there, and you don't even need to see them. You can feel these ridges. You unscrew these two connections, Once you do that, you reach up and you unscrew these two flat washers, or locking nuts. Locking nuts. And this pops right out. Easy peasy. Now, I have no idea what the quality is on this, but the rating seemed okay online. This is an Enzo Rodi by Deisch? I don't know. Probably a European company, right? Anywho, so what we got was we got a single lever faucet, which is what the wife wanted. Got to keep mama happy. So this is, it's metal. It's kind of cheesy metal, the body. But I think I read somewhere on here that the main body here is brass. It's got a zinc handle, ceramic cartridge, flexible stainless steel hoses, neopearl aerator, flow to 1.2 gallons per minute, blah, blah, blah. All right, I stand corrected. This is not brass. It's definitely an upgrade from the thing that we just took out of there. All right, so the problem at hand is that, like most faucets of this type, it has these standard 3/8 inch compression connections on it. Problem is hooking this up to the plumbing in the trailer. Now, I could return this faucet, but we bought it through Amazon, and I got to go through the, not that that's a big hassle, but got to return it, and then we got to wait for another one. And the other problem is I got to search for one that would have those type of connections, and quite frankly, they're not that common. So again, if I wanted to put a laundry tub type of faucet on there, which is even worse looking and cheesier looking than this, could do that. We're not going to do that. So how do I adapt? Well, I went through all my fittings and everything and started fooling around and thinking, well, maybe there's some way I can make this still work. Like, for instance, could I thread this into, could I connect that coupling on the end of the PEX to one of these, and then an adapter here, okay? And this is actually a different style, but I can get the style that would take this type of compression fitting readily. The problem with that is the design of this bushing has a beveled edge right here, which gives it this sharp little shelf, and that's all that would be sealing the water from getting past, and it probably either wouldn't work or wouldn't be reliable. So that's not a good idea. The other problem is, look at the height this would add to that whole thing. And as you probably noticed, those pipes are already pretty up high because they were meant to come up to about here, right, below the faucet, just a few inches below here. So then we'd have to have these long hoses wrap up and turn around and like screw down into the top of them, and that would end up kinking this, and it would be a whole mess. Not an ideal situation. So what would be better would be to actually cut that PEX tubing back a ways so that we can take advantage of these nice long stainless steel braided lines that came with the faucet. So what I need something to go from this 3/8 compression to 1/2 inch PEX, because that's 1/2 inch standard PEX that's in there. So I'd love to get a fitting like this that is like a shark bite fitting that would be able to attach to that PEX tubing without any crimping or anything, and then accept that fitting on the top there, okay? Problem is, that is not available. I couldn't find one. And as soon as I inquired at Home Depot, the guy knew exactly what I was talking about. And he said, yeah, he's really only got one way to do that. And that, stop valve. So this is a shark bite stop valve. SharkBite is a well-known brand of solderless connectors for, this is for PVC, PEX tubing, CPVC, which is PVC supply tubing that has dimensions equal to copper, PE/RT, which I don't know what that is, or copper tubing. And this is in their push to connect series of connectors. This could not be easier to use. Now, I went to my local hardware store and saw these there as an option and thought I might use them. And they were about $13.50 a piece. And since I needed 2 of them, that was going to add $27 in parts to my $40 washer replacement job, right? Wasn't too thrilled about that. So normally I don't like traveling the extra distance just to save a few pennies. But in this case, got to hand it to Home Depot with their mass buying power. These were $9.72 a piece. So they were under $10 a piece at Home Depot. So I saved over $7 to drive one town over to the Home Depot. It wasn't that far of a drive, right? But just goes to show you, you might want a price comparison shop. So this is what the fitting looks like, and it's actually pretty much a kind of a miracle of nature the way these things work. This piece right here is just a chrome ring because this stop is used also. This is the same stop that's used for toilets. And so if you have it coming straight out of the wall, or you have an exposed, if you have a pedestal vanity where you're actually going to see this valve and you want it to look all pretty in chrome and you don't want to see the PEX, the idea is that this little plastic chrome covered colored shield is supposed to hide that little bit of color you see on this fitting here and the PEX, or at least hide it more, make it look prettier. But that, just to be clear, that chrome piece, that plastic piece right there, serves no purpose other than being a dressing ring. Okay? So the only reason I didn't want to do these valves, as opposed to why I wanted a fitting that could do it, is because I figured the fitting would be cheaper. But no, had to go with the valve, so still ended up being about $20 extra in parts to go with this faucet versus trying to find a faucet that actually had the 1/2-inch fittings. So let me show you how these install. First off, the faucet couldn't be easier. The faucet, we use a plastic plate. This is actually the one from the old faucet. I've got the new one in there already. And this just drops down through the holes. And then from the underside, we slide these special washers into position. And then we tighten these brass nuts, which I have a hollow shaft nut driver, which is the perfect tool for this because as you, actually, you know what? It's not going to go all the way on there. Oh well. Well, I'll hand tighten them and then I'll find the proper size wrench to drive these home. You don't want to tighten these too tight because, well, actually those washers are metal. They could probably take it. Well, I get the faucet all mounted. I'll tell you, the 7/16" gear type wrench here is the perfect tool for that job because you don't have a lot of room underneath there to move the wrench. And an extra long deep socket might work, but those studs were pretty long. This plastic's not very thick on this vanity. So for cutting this kind of plastic tubing and pipe, I have one of these cutters right here. It's just got a really sharp blade on it. This one's actually seen quite a bit of use, but it's still sharp enough to do the job. This is really good at giving a really nice clean cut on the plastic. So there's the piece I just cut off. So the key here is to try and have a nice clean cut that's as squared off as possible. And you can actually see that that's a little bit off. So I left myself plenty of pipe. I'm gonna take another shot and see if I can improve on that. It's important that that's a squared off cut. So the next thing you want to do, I'm just going to use this as an example since it's easier to get to this just for the purpose of the video here. I'm going to show you on this. What you want to do is you want to make sure that this is nice and smooth, doesn't have any damage. If there's, for some reason some kind of damage or something, you're not going to want to use that area. And then what you want to do is you want to measure from the end here. You want to measure down and mark a line. There's actually a place on sharkbite.com, the website. There's actually a table that you can actually look up the different types of pipe and the different sizes, and it'll tell you exactly what you need. And I've got this little handy depth gauge, and I already set it to 1 inch. So what I can do is I can just hold that on the end of the pipe like so and make a mark. So I'm going to do the same thing, only I'm going to do it on the actual pipe in there, and then it's just a simple matter of pushing. Looks like according to the directions, you give a slight twisting motion to it as you put it on. And the interesting thing that the Home Depot associate told me about these, he said that once you push this on and it's on there, you can actually still spin this around. So it'll spin around, and you might think that because it spins around that it's actually loose or that something's wrong, but in fact it will still be sealed. So that's kind of an interesting little tidbit about these. Hey, so I just pushed that fitting on as far as I can push it on, and it's a little bit shy of the line there. So turns out apparently it's not 1 inch. I actually went to the SharkBite website and looked at the chart, and it actually says 15/16 of an inch. I don't know why, but on the package that the fitting comes with, there's like quick directions. It's just one of those little pictorial directions that doesn't even have any explanation, and it goes right here. It actually shows, I don't know if that's going to come out or not, but it actually shows 1 inch. So they led me to believe that this is supposed to go on 1 inch. They also, though, have that plastic piece in place during this. So there's the other new one. I take it out, you can see how far down that plastic thing sticks. So now I get that plastic piece on, spun around to the open side, and you can see that when I put it on, it pretty much lines up with my line. They make another style of these cutters that's actually a ratcheting cutter. So you kind of squeeze it, it clicks, and then you release and you squeeze, and it continues to just cut down. And that's nicer for one reason. The one reason I don't like these, on small soft vinyl tubing it's not really an issue, but on tubing like this, what can happen is as you're squeezing it, when it finally cuts through, this handle can snap shut like that and pinch your skin. That doesn't look like much, but I'll tell you, that hurt like heck. I believe that there is your subdermal hematoma. That one, this collar this inner collar here, this inner beige colored piece or whatever, this cream colored thing, that's like perfectly flush with my line that I drew at 15/16. So that makes me think that no, in fact this one is not on far enough. Well, try as I might, I can't get that to go on any further. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it. So rather than hook a water line up to the trailer to test this and run the risk of leaking water all over this cheesy laminate cabinet, I think what I'll do is I'll just pressurize the system with air. Not only will that be less messy in case there are any leaks, but it's also a little easier to hear the air if it's leaking. So I set the regulator on my air compressor to 40 psi, and I've got my fitting hooked up here. This is a fitting I made up that allows me to connect right up to the water input line here, the water fill or city fill line as they call it, and push air in there, and that's how I winterize my system. I end up blowing all the water out of the lines, and by doing that I don't have to worry about filling the lines with antifreeze. So that's how I winterize it. And I put the heater on bypass, I drain the heater, and I also take out the filter. So I just put a new filter in, tighten that's all good to go. I still hear air leaking. It's because I got my low point drain loose, so I got to cap that off. So here's the hot and cold low point drain on this trailer, and the reason why they're leaking right now is because I have them loose. And what I do is I keep them loose so that any condensation could run out, but I keep the caps on so I don't have to worry about insects crawling up into the open pipe. So it's just a matter of tightening these. Should take care of that leak. Alright, so now that air pressure is built up in the system and I do not hear any noise at all coming from these pipes, that indicates to me that there is no air leakage, which is great. And then if I wanted to confirm that I've got pressure there, of course, if I open it, still have pressure in there, no leaks. Now all I have to do is hook up my water supply lines. So it's nice that they put little stripes, little colored stripes on the braided lines there, a red stripe and a blue stripe to indicate the hot and the cold. And then of course the PEX is color coded, blue for cold, red for hot, which is also nice. You know, back in my day, growing up, you had to figure out on your own what was hot and what was cold. The pipes didn't have these fancy colors, you know. And you had to go through several feet of snow just to get to the house to hook the pipes up. And then if you did it wrong, you ended up with hot water in your toilet bowl. Alright, I just snugged up these compression nuts. So, let's see. Well, faucet's closed, so let's open 2 valves. And just hear an initial spurt of air as air rushes in to fill those tubes and compress to the 40 psi. Looking good. Things are looking good. All right. I think the wife is really going to be pleased. Well, everybody, that's going to conclude this little project. Appreciate it. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel. You never know what I might be getting into next. Take care.